Madre Verde, Oregon. Today we're gonna make some focaccia. So I lived in Italy my junior year abroad and I was obsessed with focaccia. So much that I think I gained about 25 pounds the first summer that I was there. I ate it every single day. And I love it. It's an easy bread to make. It's delicious right out of the oven and it makes fantastic sandwiches. I have tried a couple different recipes. I think I found the favorite one. So if you want to learn, please watch the video, enjoy it, click subscribe if you're new here, and let's get to baking. So for focaccia, we've tried a couple different recipes at this point, and the one that I think tastes the most traditional to what I got to actually eat in Italy is the one by Samin. It's from the video on Netflix, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Amazing. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Samin is one of those people that I have like a total fan crush. Like if I ever could pick a list of people to meet, I think I would want to meet her. And the recipe is just fantastic. So we are gonna start with 2.5 cups lukewarm water. And I have yeast right now with this COVID situation. Yeast is like somewhat of a commodity, so I don't have my normal, you can hear my children in the background probably screaming because they are home. But I don't have the normal little dish of yeast, but I do have a packet. And I'm just going to put 1/2 teaspoon in some warm water. Now, I'm not going crazy with the crazy technical aspects of baking. She doesn't in her recipe call for any particular heat or temperature. It just says lukewarm. So this is what we got. We got some lukewarm water. And the other fantastic thing is it doesn't call for a lot of yeast because the way this particular dough works is that it's a low, slow rise. You're gonna have it sit and rise for 12 to 18 hours, I think. So you don't actually need more than the 1/2 teaspoon of yeast. And now I'm gonna do 2.5 teaspoons of honey. I just have this little container in here. I'm gonna put 1, 2, and 2.5, 3, we'll see. Then I'm just gonna stir it up. And there's the kids. You will hear other noises because there are other people in this house. My husband's sitting on the couch over here watching me, so if I look at him and talk to him, I'm not crazy. I'm not talking to myself, but it is what it is. Okay. We'll set this aside. And then in the bowl, we are going to do 5 cups, 5 1/3 cups all-purpose flour. So I watched a few different videos and they tried kind of bougie, fancy flour and it didn't work as well. And so I was even gonna do bread flour, but she was very specific that your best bet is to use all-purpose. So don't get fancy on it, just stick to the recipe and it works. The other thing that I learned recently is that when we typically get flour, we do like a scoop and we tend to pack it in. Don't do that. The true measurement, it's best if you just use a spoon and you literally dollop it in. And then you can use something to kind of level it lightly off, but don't do what we typically do, which is the hard pack in. So I'm gonna do this for 5 cups. We got 1/3. The sun's finally coming out today. We've had this rainy spring day and now the sun's finally starting to come out. Okay. And then 2 tablespoons. She calls for Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, and salt is a funny thing. So if you can get Diamond right now, I don't think we can find Diamond. We had to find, what kind do we have? Morton. She recommends Diamond. I agree. I like cooking with Diamond. We can't find it right now, so we do have Morton. But stick with kosher salt because you will notice a difference if you put 2 tablespoons of regular table salt. It's much finer. It's going to be way too salty. So at least use kosher salt. It's good advice, right? It's good advice. Okay. Okay. So now we are adding the salt. Then you're just, sometimes I use my hand, but you're just kind of mixing the salt and the flour together. I like to kind of clean up my stuff and get out what I've used out of my way so I don't screw things up. But the only other thing that this is going to call for, which I really do want to make sure that you use a good quality, is olive oil. So when I get to that, like, don't skip. We are going to, I'm just reading this so that I'm not like screwing things up. I get so nervous. Okay. It's fine. We're just going to go big. There we go. Pouring it in. It's not fancy. It's a shaggy mess. But the other piece that you really need to do is good olive oil, and it's a 1/4 cup. So ironically, we did some research. I've read this amazing book on olive oil and kind of all the controversy around olive oil. A lot of people as Americans get a really good bottle of olive oil, and what do? We save it for a like fancy occasion, and it goes rancid. You got to use olive oil. It's not to be kept forever. But there's a lot of things that they cut it with, and you're not even getting real olive oil. The one that ironically Samin liked, and we had already been really into, is the organic olive oil that you can get at Costco. It's a great olive oil to use in your everyday cooking. If you can find a local olive oil, that's fantastic. We kind of geek out on olive oils, and we'll use them for dressings, salad dressings, and get the special kind of fancy ones. But otherwise, for something like this where you're going to just use a lot of it, I say use the Costco one, organic. It's delicious. So I put a 1/4 cup in this, which seems crazy, but like brace yourself because we're just getting started. We're going to put even more in it and on it and all over it tomorrow. That's what makes it good. It's kind of like, it's almost like an Italian fry bread is how I think about it. It's like it kind of bakes, but it more lines fries in its own stuff. So my hands are clean, and this is driving me nuts because the bottom is not quite getting all the flour in there, and I'm just gonna mix it up, but I'm not kneading it. I mean, this is it. All you're gonna do is leave it in this bowl, and I'm gonna cover it with saran wrap, and I am going to sit it on the counter for 12 to 14 hours to ferment overnight. Like no kneading, nothing else, and then tomorrow I'll show you all the next steps. Hi, welcome back. It's the next day. This has been rising overnight. I did it last night, went to bed, covered it, and you can see that it is significantly risen. It will drop down a little bit, but now what we're gonna do, there are a couple more steps. We're gonna take olive oil. You're still using good olive oil. I just have a cookie sheet, and it says like 2 to 3 tablespoons, but I put quite a bit in there just to grease up all the sides. Take this, and it's very sticky, so you're kind of going to knock it off the edges without totally losing all the structure that it's given you. This is gorgeous. And it's amazing because it was only that ½ teaspoon of yeast. It's really not much yeast. So now you kind of stretch it out, and you're gonna have to really stretch it twice. Because it'll kind of loosens up, and then the more that you're messing with it, I guess the glutens, they just kind of react and get mad and tighten a little. So what I do is I give it a good stretch, and then I stop touching it for 15 minutes, and then I will come and give it another good stretch. Okay, this has been resting for 30 minutes, and I stretched it twice in that time. So each 15, that was my dog. Each 15 minutes, I kind of stretched it out. It's starting to get a little bit poofy again, but now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna kind of press some little dimples, and I might actually do this again once it really warms up, because it's a little cool in here. This works really well when you have, like in the winter, if the heat is on, and I don't have that right now, it's spring, but it's a little cool. So I feel like it's not getting quite as bubbly as I like it to get, but it does have the dimples, and that's what kind of holds the salt and the olive oil. So I might end up touching it one more time, but for now, this is the weird piece with her recipe that is really unique, but it totally works, and it seems completely counterintuitive. Like you're thinking, don't do it, but it does work. You put 1/3 of a cup of warm water in just a measuring cup, and then you're gonna put 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I mean, there's a lot of salt and a lot of oil in this. So do that, and then you mix it up to kind of create a brine. And you're gonna pour it over. I'm just dissolving the salt. You might hear my children yelling in the background playing. And so then I'm just pouring this over the top of it, like so. I know it seems like, what are you doing? But it works. Now, I'm going to let this rise for another 45 minutes. And what I'm gonna do is go put it actually kind of by the fire so it gets warm and it rises more. And then 15 minutes before that 45 minutes is over, I'm going to start the oven to preheat. So I'll give you the preheat information in a moment. But for now, we're just gonna let it rest for another 45 minutes. But I'm gonna preheat my oven to 450. I don't know why it calls for this, but it does call for it. So you adjust your rack to be in the middle of the oven, and then take another cookie sheet and you just turn it over, and I'm gonna put it in so that this gets extra hot too. There we go. I think that by placing it in there, it's just gonna be an extra heat conductor to get a crisp crust. It's my alarm system. Okay, you can stay in here. It's my son. So that is gonna preheat for 15 minutes, and then at that point, we will go ahead and get the bread and put it in. Now we've had this rising for 45 minutes. We put the wash on it, and I chopped up some rosemary. I just sprinkle that right on top, like so. All that yummy. I like to chop it. Then you don't get a big piece of it in your mouth. And then I'm just using coarse salt. So this is still kosher salt. Everything that I use in this is kosher salt. And I sprinkle it like this. Then I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit more olive oil on top, which I'll put even more when we get it out. And now I'm gonna put it into that hot oven. We're gonna let that bake for 25 to 30 minutes. I'm gonna check it halfway through just to make sure that it's working, but pretty much in this oven, it's a 30-minute wait. So 30 minutes from now, we should have some delicious and crispy focaccia. I wonder if you're gonna be able to hear that. There is, there's like literally a helicopter hovering. Regardless, 30 minutes from now, we're gonna have some focaccia.
Whoa.
Okay, so we took this out of the oven. It cooked for 30 minutes, and I was spacing out a few minutes at the end, so it's a little bit browner than I usually have it. I usually do it a little bit more blonde, but it's not burnt at all. It's very crispy. And the whole thing, if you oil that bottom well, you just can pop it right out onto a cutting board. It pops right out of the dish or the baking pan. And so I have a little person here that is going to serve as my taster. You want to taste it?
Yeah.
Have a crunchy bit. You didn't hear the crunch. And then you can split it in half and make sandwiches, but that's delicious. Isn't that good, buddy? What do you think? So good. You want to tell them? So good. So I hope that you try it, and if you try it, let me know. Leave a comment, and enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.